Good evening, guys. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Sly Jordy, and welcome back to F123. My voice is sounding so much better than last time. So I'm good. It's really good. It's really good. Last episode though was the Singapore Grand Prix, and I'm feeling kind of hard done by. Obviously, we've had a new F123 update recently, which has changed the Singapore layout. So literally one episode after, like now we've got the new layout, and that sucks because the section that they removed from the Singapore track is the section that we actually ended up crashing at. If you saw that episode, in the heavy rain conditions of Singapore circuit, it sucks, but it is what it is. Basically, our sponsors are going to be running out soon as well, so we're going to have to replace 7 Even. I think I mentioned doing that last episode or the season before, because like our car can't get into those positions anymore. We're really starting to struggle, and it sucks because we were doing pretty well at Singapore until that big crash. But it is what it is. We're now finally replacing the control electronics. We've got a few parts coming in for the Japanese Grand Prix, which I'm kind of excited for. I know Section 1 has always been very difficult at Suzuka for us, but yeah, for us as in like me on previous games. I don't know how it's going to feel with this car, and obviously I don't know what weather we're going to have. I really hope it's not going to be a wet race because, yeah. And for some reason, once again, this whole who do you consider to be a rival thing is giving me people that are well above my performance in terms of the car, which sucks because, like, where's Alonso on this list? Where's Norris? You know, like, come on, man. I should be facing Norris or Alonso. Those are the two guys that I'm competing with in the championship for points. And unfortunately, going into Suzuka, our major tyre wear upgrade has failed. So, obviously, I like how when you reattempt it that you get it like 100% straight away, but now we've got to wait until next episode to get that. So, I mean, at the very least it comes for the Qatar Grand Prix, which is a track we might really need it on, but we might really need it for this one, you know? And that was a big major upgrade on a part of the car that we really do need to keep up with people on. So that does suck. And we basically have no upgrades going into the Japanese Grand Prix. At least I don't think we do anyway. And unfortunately, the race has heavy rain. Again, another wet Grand Prix. We're getting quite a lot of these this season, which do suck. Because, I mean, Singapore proved that, like, we're not at a stage where our car's going to be performing much better in the wet now. Of course, earlier on in the season it did, like at Monaco, where we won. But yeah, fortunately we don't get to do that. But after some of the practice sessions have been done, I finally do have enough R&D points to repurchase the heave dampeners. I didn't mention earlier, but you may have noticed that I didn't have enough points at the time, and now obviously we wanted to get the halo. There's the ignition system, and I'm actually looking through some of these upgrades because some of them have got some really heavy discounts, which is great for us because we want to get these upgrades in. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but we still haven't had any regulation changes come in yet. Now, I think that will be happening next episode. I did actually have a look at other people's career modes, and a lot of people's new regulation changes actually came for the Qatar Grand Prix. So, yeah, there's that for you, at the very least. So we know that for them, if it's going to happen at any point, it's going to be next episode. But for now, we're obviously focusing on improving the car as we finally make it to Suzuka. At the very least, qualifying is in the dry. So, regardless, we're going to have to change the handling anyway, mainly because of the race being in the wet thing. So, I kind of wanted to go for a middle ground of maximum and increased downforce, because yeah, so I put the wing points at, like, in between the two, So for example, like the front wing for maximum downforce was like 46 or something like that, and then thingy was like 40, like increase was 40, so I put it at like 43, like, and that's the example we have here. But anyway, our first flying lap around Suzuka. I always feel good around this track, at least in sectors 2 and 3, so I'm not too worried about those sectors, but I am worried about sector 1, because sector 1 is definitely very difficult around Suzuka, and especially in the wet, it's going to be a bit of a doozy. But yeah, Suzuka, all-time classic track. It's up there with Monaco as like one of the most important tracks on the calendar. Same with Brazil, obviously. One of the more iconic tracks on the calendar, I should say, like Monza as well. And this might be one of the last iconic ones. I think, yeah, we've still got Brazil to go. Qatar's next. Las Vegas is going to happen at some point. Pretty sure we have the Austin Grand Prix as well. And then obviously we got Abu Dhabi for the last one. But yeah, I feel really good around this circuit, of course, with our increased downforce. Sector 1 is definitely made a lot easier, and we could actually be making a lot of time through those corners because of that. But yeah, what I am worried about is the straight line in Sector 3, because, well, that's where people could actually catch up. But I think we've got like Q1 in the bag. Like, I can't remember the last time we got knocked out in Q1, other than Zandvoort. So I'm not worried about Q1. I'm worried about like where we place in Q2, and hopefully we can still make it to Q3. Because yeah, it's been a while since we didn't make it to Q3, obviously. Because yeah, our qualifying pace seems to be like really good. It's more the race pace that needs a bit of an improvement. So hopefully there is some good changes to be made. But we're going to get over this first lap with a 129.7, so not too bad. But we're also going to do this second lap with a set of scrub tyres. So yeah, mainly because I want to save tyres for the next two qualifying sessions, and I'm not too worried about getting knocked out of Q1 regardless. But as we do this flying lap, I'm really glad we didn't waste a set of tyres, because Lewis Hamilton was going really slow to the point that he kind of pushed us off track, and so I returned the favour. There's a little receipt there, and very surprisingly, Valtteri Bottas gets knocked out of Q1, but the rest of people we've always seen get knocked out. Of course, unfortunately, our teammate is still one of those people, and yeah, that does suck. But now, of course, we're going into qualifying 2. I'm feeling pretty good about our pace, to be quite honest. I think we're still using scrub tyres on this lap as well, as I usually do on the first lap. But I'm feeling pretty good around this track, and it does kind of suck that, you know, our race is only going to be in the wet, and so this pace doesn't matter anyway. But yeah, it makes me feel a lot worse, because like we went fastest in that session. And we were actually going even faster for our second flying lap here on a new set of tyres. I'm pretty sure, just under a couple of tenths faster, and that is good enough for P3. So we actually do manage to get to qualifying 3, which is great news. And here we go for qualifying 3. Of course, lap 1. So this isn't actually the official lap. I've cut out our scrub tyres lap, because I did the scrub tyres lap, and obviously it doesn't really matter how that ends up in Q3. You guys know it always ends up P10, so like every time we've done it, every episode. So we're just going to skip ahead to the last part of the session, and we're going to be the last car to run through qualifying. And I mean, look at this pace we are setting for Sector 1 right now. Already almost a second up from our time, making a little bit of a mistake there, taking too much curb, and we actually lose nearly 3 tenths almost there, but we managed to recover quite well to get the time back. But it could have been even more if we didn't do that. Cutting the corner just a little bit there, but staying in the limits just enough. Like, we're really pushing this to its breaking point, and we're already a second up from our original time, which I'm not surprised at all, because obviously that lap was on a scrub set of tyres. So honestly, Don't pay attention to the improvements on the top right, because clearly it's on a lot more fresher tyres. I'm just wanting to see where this ends up, and of course we want to get close to Norris and Alonso, who are in P7 and P8 respectively. So those are positions we are used to battling for. Of course, in recent races, of course, we've fallen down a little bit to the point that we've kind of been scraping 10th and 9th. But we want to get enough points to stick with Fernando Alonso, to stick with Lando Norris all the way to the end of the season. And yeah, this has been a really, really good lap. As we are about to cross the line now, what position are we getting? It is P7. We beat both Alonso and Norris around Suzuka on pure qualifying pace. That is just simply wonderful. Not too much faster, to be honest, at least compared to Alonso, but Norris is someone we should be competing with. McLaren haven't improved too much this season, but Aston Martin have, and so Alonso is definitely someone to be scared of going into the race. But we beat him, and that's good enough for me.
Today from the Mie Prefecture in the south of Japan's Honshu Island for a race that has seen many title deciders over the years. Some simple, some controversial, but all contributing to a legacy that makes the Japanese Grand Prix an indispensable stop in any Formula One season. We're southwest of the city of Nagoya today at a wet and windy Suzuka circuit. 3.6 miles and 18 corners make up a lap here, with Sector 1 likely to prove especially difficult in these conditions. We should see overtaking into turns 1 and 16 today, maybe a few Kobayashi-style dives into the hairpin as well. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Sergio Perez will lead us away from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, the owner driver, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Ocon, Gasly, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Zhou, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Bottas, Albon, De Vries, Théo Pourchaire, Sargent, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Not one of the easiest days to go racing. It's damp, it's slippery, there's dark clouds as far as the eye can see. The rain is here then, and that's going to take away a lot of the grip. Anthony Davidson, that's going to make turn 1 very interesting indeed.
Yeah, it's these kind of conditions where you can go in with one of two mindsets. You either see it as an opportunity, or you're worried that all of your hard work's about to be undone. We've been stuck in these conditions now for a few hours, more or less this kind of intensity, so we don't seem to have too much standing water, so we're not likely to be starting behind a safety car. And like you say, Crofty, the charge down into turn 1 will be quite interesting. I think we're in for a cracking Grand Prix.
Well, yeah, I agree with Anthony Davidson. Definitely going to be an interesting Grand Prix, to say the least. Unlike Singapore, we're actually not starting in the dry. It was crazy how quickly it went from rain, from dry to rain, within a sector or two in Singapore. At least we don't have to worry about that here at Suzuka. We're starting in the rain and we're starting on inters, so yeah, things are looking pretty good. Obviously our main goal is to stay in 7th, but depending on our pace in the wet, we might be able to even go a little higher, who knows. But Verstappen, P5, strange. And I actually did read somewhere that a lot of the R&D upgrades only really apply to the second driver. So that's why in so many career modes, say, like Sergio Perez is better than Verstappen, for example. In a lot of people's career modes anyway. But I'm pretty sure in our career mode, Verstappen is still like top of the championship. Obviously Leclerc's up there as well. We haven't really been paying attention to the championship personally ourselves. We've been focused on ourselves. But, yeah, it'd be really nice to see what could happen here as we actually do line up at the grid, ready for lights out, as the rest of the grid forms up, and of course we've positioned our car facing a little bit more towards the right to try and get the jump on Carlos Sainz here as we go to 5 red lights, and it's lights out. We are underway, and it's a pretty good start from us. Way better than Sainz, obviously, as the rest of the grid in front of us is, oh my god, gotten a little far ahead. I didn't really know where the braking point should be. I didn't want to get too close to Verstappen just in case we got brake checked, and obviously I misjudged it a little bit because they went pretty far ahead, but we seem to have like made up for it pretty quickly, as now we have kind of we've managed to slot ourselves between Verstappen and Sainz, who is getting really close to us. So maybe it might be a good idea to perhaps let Sainz pass at some point, because he's clearly going to be a lot quicker than us, and it's Alonso who are really going to have to fight. But obviously Alonso is going to be a bit of trouble to work with as well, because he's in one of the faster cars on the grid, and he's Fernando Alonso. He's one of the best drivers on the grid. But we're going to dive bomb Verstappen here. A little bit of contact is made as he does go for the switchback, but we don't give him enough space, and Sainz doesn't either as he's on the other side. And yeah, we've managed to climb up to P5, strangely enough, as we are now behind Charles Leclerc. Russell's ahead, and I assume it would be Hamilton and Perez in the top 2. So not good for Max Verstappen once again. We seem to be becoming a bit of an arch nemesis for Max Verstappen at this point. A little hidden arch nemesis, as we're seemingly like hindering him at every given opportunity, as he now tries to dive down the inside into this little chicane, into the last corner as Sergio Perez sets the fastest lap. So he is he's in first looking at the mini map. So it is Checo who's setting the fastest lap. We're actually going to let Verstappen past here. No way I want to deal with him anymore. And that's basically what happens as we now make a little mistake, take too much curb, and yeah, we go off into the gravel as Carlos Sainz passes us, and now Fernando Alonso is going to be passing us as well, which is really not good. So we're going to dive down the inside, a very daring move. Not too unlike Fernando Alonso himself, and of course it's me, Alonso and Norris battling for P7 in the championship, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, definitely already fierce competition there. And as we go ahead, I make another little mistake there. Like in the wet, I'm not too comfortable. I really wish you could do time trials in the wet. Like maybe you can, I don't know, but not that I remember anyway. So definitely something I struggle to do. And of course on these straights, Fernando Alonso is definitely being a nuisance, an actual proper nuisance. But we're keeping him behind for now, and that's really all that matters. But for how long? How long can we stay ahead of Alonso, especially when we're making mistakes like that? And we can't redo it, and Alonso can't really slow down enough to avoid a collision neither. He hit us pretty hard. I'm surprised that we didn't get like any sort of damage, but we lasted 13 laps there, and it was a long time coming because Aston Martin have really been improving that car to the point that Alonso's just too much. Lance Stroll, of course, is in P10, and we skip ahead to the final lap of the Grand Prix. This is essentially where our pace is at now. Of course, Lando Norris, like I said earlier, the McLaren just hasn't improved enough over the course of this season. So Lando Norris is not something we need to worry about. He does have more points than me and Alonso, so Lando Norris has managed to push that McLaren into places it really shouldn't be, just like us with this car. But when it comes to Suzuka, obviously it's now down to like overall pace of the car, and I mean Fernando Alonso, he is him anyway. He is Fernando Alonso, and Aston Martin have already been improving quite a lot, especially going into Suzuka now, and yeah, eventually just too much to deal with. But fortunately, we're not going to be too many points behind him. What, like 9th place is 2 points, 8th is 4, 7th is 6, I'm pretty sure. So we only really lose out on 2 points to Alonso. We can kind of recuperate that in future. And I think Lando Norris is the one in front of us, personally, in the championship. And then Alonso is like lower than us by a few points. But these are the guys we're competing with, and it's good. Like, out of all the people I could compete with, I'm glad it's Alonso and Norris. Like, these guys are genuinely really good drivers, and us beating them would make a big statement, especially going into Season 2, as Sergio Perez, Checo, takes the win here. These Inters are really worn at this point. Obviously, they've gone the entire race, and I really hope the next race is in the dry. It is Qatar, so I highly doubt it wouldn't be, but who knows? Maybe we'll have a really fun rainy Qatar Grand Prix. That would be so out of the norm, but we're going to come across the line here with a comfortable P8. Lando Norris never troubled us. It could have been P7, but I think we were going to lose that eventually regardless. Alonso was clearly quicker than us. And there was only so much defending we could do without making mistakes. Of course, in the rain, you're pretty prone to making mistakes. But P8, I'll take it any day.
Grand Prix here in Japan. A brilliant victory that has thoroughly earned the applause of the sellout crowd here today. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Rain always has the potential to liven up a race and mix up the order, and they've taken full advantage of that to claim the victory today. It's always a bit of a lottery when the conditions are like this, but they've managed to stay on circuit and have come out on top.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team.
Well, neither of the top two in the championship fight are going to be happy about this, of course. Verstappen and Leclerc leading the championship before this race. But I think with this win, Sergio Perez might actually be, like, in the fight. I think he might actually be P1 in the championship after this one. So, obviously, like I said earlier, pretty sure second driver stats still apply to every team, which I think's a bit of an oversight, a really bad oversight. Especially since, like, Verstappen is way better than Perez, but Verstappen ended up getting a P5, which is where he started on the grid, so not many things changed. But yeah, Sergio Perez is now leading the championship. Of course, the Mercedes guys are kind of still in the battle as well, but yeah, it looks like it's going to be between Perez, Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc for that title fight, and hopefully we're able to you know, get into that title fight for Season 2. Théo Pourchaire actually ends up getting to P18, so really good for him, I suppose. That's where we finished last episode, and of course he got P17 in Singapore, but still behind De Vries, still behind Logan Sargent, which are two people he honestly should be beaten, in my opinion. But yeah, once again, we don't get the 7 Even sponsor, and that's why we really need to replace that one. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for watching this episode of F123 My Team Career Mode. I was so happy about getting P8, getting points once again in Suzuka, because we've really been struggling recently, so we really needed a race like this, so that's great. And anyway, guys, next episode is the Qatar Grand Prix. Very, very excited for that one, and I'm gonna basically upload that pretty soon after this one. But yeah, guys, cheers for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Until next time, peace.